Alright, so I have one side cut the way I wanted. I cut it a little bit long and I took some off. What I'm going to talk to you guys about is, notice how that the grain runs into each other. Okay, so on this piece here, you have your grain direction running lengthwise, which it should. And the problem with these side pieces, or I shouldn't say the problem, but the difficult part, is that if you look at them, they're pretty much square. I mean, if I measure, it's about 1 foot by 1 foot, and that's what it should be. But what you need to make sure happens is that your grain runs the length of your long side, which that should be fairly easy, but also that the grain runs the length of your board. So notice how the grain flows from the long side into the short side, and if I flip it back around, it also runs here. Okay, so the grain is constantly running in a circle. The reason why, will it make a difference necessarily structure-wise? No, structurally it doesn't make a difference whether the grain, because it's plywood, it doesn't matter if it runs this way or, vertically, because it's, again, we talked about plywood and you have this veneer coating on it. But it just makes, it's kind of one of those craft things, and you'll also be grading on. So, I mean, if you look here, it's not really that appealing to the eye. The grain runs here, and then now your eye is told to focus up and down, and it's supposed to come towards here, and then you have it running lengthwise again. So it's not really that attractive. I mean, if you make this mistake, that's fine. That's, it's a learning experience. You'll have to deal with it because you can't be cutting, again, more pieces. So this piece here goes lengthwise, and if you notice that, it fits snug. I didn't really have to pound it in there at all or anything like that. Now, I've cut my side, my end, for the other piece, or for the other side, I should say. So, if we notice here, like I said, I've cut it a little bit long. So I'm going to try and fit it in now for the first time. And we can see that right now, if I start at the bottom, well, it's not going to fit in snug. So the common thing for people to do is they'll bring it up here. Oh, it fits up here. And then they'll slide it down. Well, it's still fitting, still fitting. All right, well, now it's stuck. Well, it only has about 1 inch to go, and then they'll start pounding on it. What that does is that puts pressure on your joints of your legs. Again, we have our end joints, or our miter joints here to hide the end grain, but when we glue end grain to end grain, it's not that strong. Yeah, we've reinforced it, but still, there's been kids that have, they've brushed it, and they're like, oh, it's only 1 inch or so, and they'll pound it down. And what ends up happening is that they'll actually pull their leg apart, because you have pressure, you have a board that's too long trying to fit into a space that it wasn't designed to go into. So here you can see it's already starting to roll down here. They'll get something like this too. They'll say, well, it's fairly close on this side. All I have to do is just smash this side in and then pound it down. Well, then you'll put stress on this corner because it's acting like a lever. It's going to pull your corner apart. So what you want to do is make sure that you end up having these tight against the face again. Kind of measure, and you want to take off just a little bit at a time, less than 1/16 of an inch at a time, because you can always take more material off, but you can't put it back on. So what this does is, again, using the chop saw, you want to take off just a little bit at a time. Okay, and if you feel like you're doing you're cutting, but it's not fitting any smaller, odds are you're probably cutting off the wrong side. So if it helps, and I even do this too, is again, since it's 1 foot by 1 foot, it's a square, a lot of time kids will cut off running with the grain because they get the idea that, oh, the grain needs to run from side to side, from side to side, left to right, not up and down. So then they'll cut from side to side. But what ends up happening is when we're dealing with length, just like when we were dealing with length with the legs, we made a cross cut because we were cutting across the grain. When you cut across the grain, that's dealing with length. When you cut with the grain, that's dealing with width. So I'm going to make a mark here. I'm going to kind of bring this into position, get this fairly close, and I'll actually mark about how much I need to take off, and from here it's just a little bit. Now you can make the pencil mark if you want. I'm just going to make it so you guys can see it. I'm going to be cutting across my grain. So again, I have my grain running left to right, and I want to cut across it. And the one thing is, yeah, you can spend time making this line nice and perfect and straight, but saws don't see pencil marks. Saws will cut wherever you line up the material. So it's up to you to make that, to line up your saw and your pencil mark accurately. You know, if you make the whole pencil mark, you know, I guess that's fine if that's your preference, but really all you need to do is you just need to make a small little mark about in the center of how much needs to be cut off. So again, using the chop saw, cut this to length, get this to fit tight. If you feel like you're having difficulties, come see me and we'll figure it out.